Assalamu alaikum students, I am Jalis Rahman, CS103 lab instructor. Today we will discuss loops in C++, for loop, while loop and do while loop. What is a loop in computer programming? The formal definition of a loop is a set of instructions executing a block of statements repeatedly until a particular condition is satisfied. Loop is initialized first and then a condition is checked. If condition is true, then code statements or operation inside loop body are executed. And after execution of code statements, loop condition is again checked. This iterative behavior is performed until loop condition is false and loop terminates. Now, for example, we want to print hello world 100 times. Then instead of writing hello world 100 times, we can use loop and we can print 100 times hello world using one line of code. Types of loop. There are three types of loop: for loop, while loop and do while loop. A for loop executes a sequence of statements multiple times and continuously checks the loop condition until it is false. A while loop repeats a group of statements until a given condition is true. It checks the condition before executing of loop body. The main difference between while and for loop is that for loop allows you to do initialization, condition check and update variable in a single line. On the other hand, while loop does not have initialization statement and loop variable can be updated anywhere inside loop body. The main purpose of while loop is that if we don't know number of iterations, then we use while loop. Do while loop is like while loop except that it checks the condition at the end of the loop body, and this loop is iterated for at least one time. This is basic syntax of for loop. First, loop variable is initialized and then loop condition is checked on loop variable, and if the loop condition is true, then the for loop body will be executed. Once loop body is executed, the loop variable will update and the condition will be checked again. This is repeated until loop condition is false. For example, we want to print numbers from 2 to 5. We can use for loop. Let's try run it. Here we have the main memory of the program. Here we have the output screen of the program, and this is the for loop condition. Initially, loop variable is I and we have 2 in the loop variable, and loop condition is when I is less than or equal to 5. You can see that 2 is less than or equal to 5 and this condition is true. When this condition is true, the loop body will be executed and this I is printed with space to screen, with space. Once the loop statements are executed, the loop variable is updated by adding 1 to it. So 2 will become 3 and again loop condition is checked. Now we can see that 3 is less than or equal to 5, which is true. So the loop body will be executed again and 3 will be printed with a space, and loop variable is again updated to 4, and we can see that 4 is less than or equal to 5, which is true, and the loop body will print 4 with a space, and loop variable is updated again to 5, and we can see that 5 is less than or equal to 5, which is true, and 5 will be printed with a space. Loop variable is updated to 6. Now we can see that 6 is less than or equal to 5, which is false. So the for loop will terminate it here and we will get 2, 3, 4, 5 on the screen. The next is while loop. The syntax of while loop is given. In while loop we will have to check the condition at first, and if the condition is true, then we will go inside the body of the loop, and the loop variable is updated inside, somewhere inside the body. When the loop body is ended, we will check again the condition, and this will be iterated until the loop condition is false. Let's continue the same example using while loop. For the dry run, let's make memory, output screen, and the loop condition. Loop condition is when number n is less than or equal to 5, and in number we have 2 initially. When this line is executed and we have 2 in num, 2 is less than or equal to 5, which is true, so the body of the while will be executed. Num will be printed to the output with space, and in the second line of the loop body we will increase the num variable by 1, and this is actually the loop variable, and we want to update it inside the loop, and so this 2 will become 3. So the loop body ends here, the condition will again checked, and as num or 3 is less than or equal to 5, which is true, the loop body will be executed again, and we will have 3 at the screen. Num variable will be updated to 4, and the loop condition will be checked again, which means that 4 is less than or equal to 5, which is true, so we will get 4 at the screen. Increment will be done again to the loop variable, and it will become 5. 5 is less than or equal to 5, which is true. We will get 5 at the screen, and num will do increment again. We will get 6. Loop condition is when 6 is less than or equal to 5, which is false, so we will get 2, 3, 4 and 5 on the screen. The next is do while loop. The syntax of do while loop is given. In do while loop we execute the loop body at least once before going into the condition check. You can see that we execute the loop body first, and then we check the loop condition, and if the loop condition is true, we again execute the loop body, and if the loop condition is false, we terminate the loop. So consider the same example using do while loop. This is our main memory, this is our screen, and this is loop condition. Loop condition is when I is less than or equal to 5, and we know that we have to inside I variable, I is equal to 2. You can see that when the do line is executed, the do body will be executed before checking the condition, so we will get 2 at the output screen, and then we do the increment, and then the condition is checked that whether this 3 is less than or equal to 5 or not, which is true. We will again come to the do body, this cout condition will be executed, we will get 3, the increment to I will be done, it will become 4, and 4 is less than or equal to 5, this condition is checked, we will get 4 here, the increment operator has done. So we will get 5 now, and 5 is less than or equal to 5. This one is executed and the loop body will be executed again. We will get 5 and this increment operator will be done and we will get 6. As 6 is not less than or equal to 5, so this loop condition is false and we will get 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the difference here is that in previous loops, while and for loops, we checked the condition for 5 times, and here we have checked only 4 times, because at first we execute the loop and then we check the condition. The next is nested loops. Nested loops consist of an outer loop with one or more inner loops. Simply when we have loop inside some other loop is called a nested loop. The basic syntax of a for loop inside some other loop is given. You can see that we have a for loop with its conditions, and the body of this loop starts from here and ends here. There is another for loop inside the body of the upper loop with some other conditions, and this for loop has own body. So this is called the nested loop. And why we need the nested loops? For example, if we want to access each element of a matrix, then we need a nested loop. Let's do example. In this example we want to print out the triangle shape. Since we have 3 rows of the triangle, for loop will be executed 3 times. For each ith row we have I columns. For row 1 we have 1 column, for row 2 we have 2 columns, and for row 3 we have 3 columns. Let's try run it. We have a main memory here, the output screen, the condition for loop 1, condition for loop 2. The condition for loop 1 is when I is less than or equal to 3, and the condition for loop 2 is when j is less than or equal to I. When the outer loop is executed, we got 1 in I. Since the condition when I is less than or equal to 3 and we have 1 in I, this condition is true. When this condition is true, the for loop body will be executed. The second loop inside the for loop will be executed, and j will be given value 1. Since the condition is when j is less than or equal to I and we have 1 in I and 1 in j, the condition is true because 1 is less than or equal to 1. When the condition is true, this cout statement will be executed and we will get a star on the screen. When the inner loop ends here, the update statement will be executed and we will get 2 in j, and this condition for j will be executed. Since 2 is not less than or equal to 1, this condition will be false. The inner loop will be terminated and the next line will be executed. This line means that the cursor will have to shift to next line. Let's clean the screen. When the outer loop ends, the update statement will be executed and j will be increased to 2, and then the condition will be executed. Since 2 is less than or equal to 3, this statement is true. The inner loop will be executed again. J will be given 1 again, since the condition is j is less than or equal to I, and we have 1 in j and 2 in I, the condition is true because when n is less than or equal to 2. When this condition is true, this outline will be executed and we will get a star here on the screen with space. When this loop ends, the update statement will be executed again and we will get 2 in j. This condition will be checked again. Since 2 is less than or equal to 2, this condition is true again and this cout line will be executed again and we get the second star on the screen. When this loop ends, the j will be updated to 3. Since 3 is not equal to or less than 2, this condition is false. When this condition is false, the cout of next line will be executed and the cursor will be shifted to next line. Let's remove the extra lines again from the screen. Now when this loop ends here, the update statement will be executed again and the I will be updated to 3. The condition is true because 3 is less than or equal to 3, so the inner loop will be executed again. J will be a given value of 1 again. The loop condition is j is less than or equal to I. Since we have 1 in j and 3 in I, which means that this condition is true because 1 is less than or equal to 3. This cout statement will be executed again and we will get the star on the screen. The j statement will be updated. The cout line of the star will be executed again. We will get the star on the screen. The update will be done again. We will get 3 in j. Since j has 3, this condition is true. When this condition is true, we will get star on the screen. The j will be updated to 4. Since 4 is not less than or equal to 3, this condition is false and the inner for loop will be terminated and the cout line will be executed and we will have the cursor on the next line. When this loop ends here, the update will be executed again and we will get 4 in I. This condition is false because 4 is not less than or equal to 3. When this condition is false, the outer for loop will be terminated and the program will be exited successfully with the output screen like this. The next is break statements. The break statements are used when we want to skip the lines of code inside a loop or we want to exit the loop. In loops, we use break statements to terminate the loop when certain condition is true. The syntax of break statement is this: a simple example of for loop having a break statement. When the condition is true and this break line is executed, the loop will move to this line directly and these lines will be skipped and the loop will be terminated. Continuous statements are used when we want to skip the current situation or we want to know operation if the condition is true. The syntax of continue is this: when the if condition is true and continuous statement is executed, the loop will not execute this line and the loop will come here to update the variable and skip these lines after the continue statements. Now this is the example of break and continue statements. Now print numbers between 2 and 20 except those numbers which are divisible by 3 and terminate the loop if square of number exceeds 100. Let's try run it. This is the output screen here. This is the memory. This is for loop condition. This is first if condition, and this is the second if condition. When the first line is executed, we will get 2 in num and will be with value 2, and loop condition is when n is less than or equal to 20, and the first if is when n mod 3 is equal to 0, and the second condition is when n multiplies by n is greater than 100. Then the program will be terminated. Since 2 is less than or equal to 20, this condition is true and the body of this loop will be executed. The first if checks whether the number is divisible by 3 or not, and the second if checks when the square of number exceeds the 100. Since 2 mod 3 is not equal to 0, this condition is false. Since 2 cross 2 is not greater than 100, this condition is also false, and we will get the num on the screen, which is 2 with a space. When this loop ends, the update statement will be executed and we will get 3 in n 20. Since 3 is less than 20, this condition is true. When this condition is true, the first if will be executed. Since the first if condition is true because 3 mod 3 is equal to 0, we will get to the continue statements. When continue statement is executed, the remaining lines of code will be not executed, and we will get to the num update again, and we will get 4 here. Since we are at num is equal to 4 and this condition is true, so we will get to the if statement again. The first if is false and the second if is also false because 4 cross 4 is not greater than 100. We will get 4 on the screen. Similarly, we will get 5 on the screen, 7 on the screen, and 8 on the screen, 10 on the screen. When n is equal to 11, this condition is true and this if is false, but this if is true because 11 times 11 is greater than 100. When this condition is true, we will get the break statement here, and when the break statement comes, the loop will be terminated and we will get to this line and the program will be terminated here. So we will get 2, 4, 5, 7, 8 and 10 on the output screen.